Welcome to I Hate It Here, the podcast for HR and people professionals, making the hardest job in the world just a little bit easier. I'm Hiba Youssef.
Your people are your differentiator. Your people are all you have. And if you're not investing in them, you're on the decline and you're just kind of like so detrimental to your business. What are you doing? And so and then we have the unhappiness survey, but like the places that actually go and value their people, they're not dealing with that problem. And become that place, become the beacon of being a really great place to work that takes care of your people, even in the tough times. And they're going to lead you through that. And you'll be miles ahead of everybody else's as an org.
Internal is the platform your creative team didn't know they needed until now. It helps you tap into the hidden passions of your employees with super personalized visual profiles. Want to know your junior designer is not just a designer, but also a Bravo Reddit mod, Bad Bunny stan, and TikTok-obsessed animator? Now you can. In seconds, you'll see your people as they see themselves and match them to projects they actually care about. Unlock all the talent sitting under your own roof. Head to seeyourpeople.com to learn more. New season, who this? Just kidding. It's your HR person's favorite HR person. That would be me. This season of the I Hate It Here pod is going to be a fun one. I'm diving into zones of genius and asking each guest what they're naturally good at and how to get into that flow state. And hopefully it inspires you to find your zone of genius when you're doing work. And today's guest might be the coolest person I've recently met. Justin Gignac is the co-founder of Working Not Working, a global community connecting top creative talent with leading companies like Apple, Google, and Nike. Before that, he was an award-winning art director and creative director, best known for co-creating elfyourself.com. Justin's personal projects such as NYC Garbage and Wants for Sale have gained widespread attention. He's dedicated to helping creatives feel less isolated, running the Talking Not Talking creative support group, and hosting the Overshare podcast. And Justin was named one of Ad Age's 50 most creative people in 2015. Justin, welcome to the I Hate It Here pod.
Thanks, Hiba. We did it. You nailed the intro. Way to go.
Yeah. It's the first episode of the season, so I have to come in super hot and super corny, and hopefully it doesn't turn people off from listening the rest of the season.
I don't think you were corny at all.
You just wait. I'm going to make one corny joke. Okay, before we get to today's episode where we talk about your zone of genius, I do this thing every season where I ask every guest the same question. I think it's super helpful and gives kind of a frame of mind to everyone listening. So my question this season is, what is one thing you think HR folks should rethink?
Oh, yeah. One thing I think HR folks should rethink their definition of people bringing them full selves to work. I think they really should embrace people's passions and interests in everything that they nerd out about outside of work, and allow them to bring that to the office. And the things that get them excited, that bring them joy, that stuff is contagious. So as much as you can encourage that and people bring that to work, I think the better, and it's going to pay dividends.
How do you encourage that at Working Not Working?
Well, we're a really small team, so we're 5 people full time, and we, a lot of times we're all remote. So our meetings go way too long because we're just hanging out and talking about our weekends at the beginning. But it really is finding out what everybody's into, right? So we got a few runners on the team, we've got a few parents on the team. We'll probably get into this later, where we launched a platform and we thought it was for bigger orgs, and we did it for our own team, and found out that Nick, our developer, is really into woodworking, and Caitlin, our freelance producer, is a sound bath instructor. And I saw that and I was like, I've been wanting to get sound bath bowls, and we just nerded out and we got on a Zoom and just started talking about sound bath bowls. They are way too expensive. I'm not getting one now. They're over $2,000. But just really knowing what people are into outside of work, and then we can just shoot the shit and have a good time on that.
Yeah, work is just, I don't know. My direct report's a huge Taylor Swift fan, so we nerd out about Taylor Swift related things, and we talk a lot about music. I think I was telling you this on our first call. She asked me about one of my favorite albums, and I ranted about it for 30 minutes, and she was like, wow, I didn't realize that's what this meeting was going to be about. And I was like, let me talk about track 1 to track 12 and the journey you're about to be on. And she was like, uh-huh. And it was really nice. We listen to a lot of the same music, so it worked out great. But I think it was just a moment for me, and it's made our relationship so strong in 2 years where I almost think she can predict how I'm going to react to a lot of things simply because she knows me outside of who I am as a professional.
Yeah, and then that's the stuff. It's like, we talk about love languages, and we've done that, gone through our love languages with coworkers, which not all of them are work appropriate, but still, like finding out what people are into is that love language. Is like, like, yeah, you might be really into, what is it? I think you should leave now, the Tim Robinson show, or maybe whatever it is, and then it's like, all right, we all have some things in common, and being able to find that common ground goes a long way.
Yeah. When you and I talked, our first call honestly felt like a flow state of brainstorming. We were talking about this episode,
Uh huh.
and I asked you what was your zone of genius, and you said like brainstorming and collaborating with somebody. And so I'm really curious to dig into that today because I feel like this whole episode might end up feeling like a brainstorm for you and I. We're probably going to go on a million tangents, but we'll keep talking about why that's your zone of genius. Like you are in a creative field. So talk to me a little bit about what that means to you. Like you're doing cool stuff with your team.
It's funny when we were talking earlier or a couple days ago, and it was like I had just recently been diagnosed with ADHD, and it was like, oh, it explains so much now. And I'm like, well, I hate email. Like I can't do things through email. People will send me like a long punch list of the things they need answers on or ideas on or whatever else, and I'm crippled. Like I can't answer it. But I'm like, hey, can we just get on a call for 5 minutes, 10 minutes? And like, I can do anything. If this interview were an email interview, it wouldn't have happened. But like, we go in and just start talking. Like, that's my natural state. And for me, I there's an energy to connecting with other people. And so for me, like, I like bouncing things off. It's, it feels like almost like improv, it's like yes, and I'm like addicted to ideas. I have had many in my career, but like, it's always about the best idea and the thing that gets me excited. So it could be my idea or it could be someone else's. And then it's like, I just latch onto that and figure out like, how do we make that great? And so, also, it probably will come as no surprise that I used to be a cheerleader and a professional mascot. So that like enthusiasm is part of me, and it's just like where I feel most comfortable. Like, and so that energy I feed off of that, and like clearly I'm an extrovert, and my wife is just like, okay, man, like. But she's like, you need to go and recharge. So go out and hang out with your friends and talk to people. And then like, that's where I like, it makes me alive.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I mean, no surprise. That's probably why we got
Yeah.
along so great in the first time we
Yeah.
met because I love talking to people. My mom used to joke like, "You could talk to a brick wall," and I'm like, "Yeah, I probably could, honestly. I would ask it how it was doing and why it chose the color it chose." Like, that is something I would do.
Why it
I
chose the color it chose.
why cho yeah,
You're
like,
very empathetic too. Yeah, it's good.
why are you this color? Just tell me more. Like, like they would talk to the brick wall. But and it's just like fun to talk to people. You learn so much. I'm one of those people who like talks to every single one of her Uber drivers. Like when they
Yeah,
made that
me
thing where you
too.
don't have to talk to them, I'm like, but I want to talk to them. I'm in their car. I want to know their life story. Like I want to be a nice person to them. Like
It's why you are great in HR.
probably and probably not great in HR for other
Yeah,
reasons.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you mentioned the cheerleading and the mascotting. Was that when you discovered that you like kind of have this strength and zone of genius of brainstorming and like feeding off the energy of others? Or like how did you discover that this was your strength?
Well, I've always been, so I went to school to be in advertising. I've wanted to be in advertising since I was 11 years old. Yeah, I used to
Why?
record on VHS the Clio Awards. And so it was like a whole thing. And my stepfather was like very blue collar. And he was like, you should do something with your brain, not your hands. He's like, you love those ads. You should do advertising. And as an 11-year-old, I thought they just appeared on TV. I didn't realize someone made them. And so I was like, oh, yeah, I want to be in advertising. And so from that point on, I was all about making ads. And then once you get to school and art school and advertising class, like it is about that collaboration and talking about things. So, and I've noticed like my best ideas and the ones that have been most successful have come out of conversations. They haven't been me solitary. It's someone saying something and triggering, whatever. It's like when I used to package, and I'm going to be bringing it back actually, packaging and selling New York City garbage in plexiglass boxes. And that came out of a conversation when I was an intern at MTV in college where someone said package design didn't matter. I thought that was ridiculous. So if I could package something absolutely nobody would ever want to buy and convince them to buy it, I knew my design was successful. So, but without that conversation, that never would have happened. So like I'm always like in that mode of like, responding to things and being part of that collaborative, connection to people.
Yeah. I am dying at the garbage thing because I think packaging is so important. Sometimes I just buy skincare because I like the package.
Absolutely. You could say that for anything. Like
That's true.
we buy, like, who doesn't buy wine based on the packaging? Like, or unless someone said it's really good. But yeah. I used to sell the garbage. It was initially $5 a box, and then I kept raising the price because I couldn't keep up with the demand. So it was $10, $25, $50, and then $100 for limited edition.
Is it coming? You said it was coming back. Is it coming back?
Yeah, I haven't done it in 10 years, but I keep getting hit up about it. So I'm like, all right, I got to bring it back. But like, you heard it here first. So I'm going to try to do it for this holiday season. But it was funny when I first did it, people thought it was a joke. And then like $25, they were like, oh, a nice souvenir. And then $50, people started calling it art. And so it's amazing how you change the price and it changes people's perspectives. And I guess that works for candidates as well. Like, like, hey, my salary is this. And you're like, wow, they must be really good.
Yeah. I love that. Okay, I have one question. It's not on my list of questions, but I have to ask it. You want to go into advertising, Mad Men. Have you
Uh-huh.
watched it? Is that
Oh,
like
of course. Yeah.
a
Yeah.
must for people? Okay. I also watched Mad Men. I think I fell asleep in the last season and never picked it back up. What are your
Fair.
thoughts? Yes, no, should people watch it?
Yeah, it's funny because a lot of
Controversial.
times when you're a creative person, um, the joke is like, my parents don't know what I do, my grandparents don't know
Yeah.
what I do, and then you have
Yeah.
them watch that show and they're like, they kind of get it. There's a lot less drinking and smoking and just terribleness of humans, but yeah, it's like to come up with an idea and how to convince someone to buy a product. It's a lot of what we do. So I think they added a lot of drama to it, but yeah, it's pretty accurate.
I love that because I think of like HR and pop culture, and everyone thinks of Toby from The Office, who is like the
Yeah,
worst HR
I'm
person known
rewatching The
to
Office
man.
now. Yeah.
I did a whole episode about HR and pop culture, and Toby was like one of the examples that we were like, never. Every time I see him on the screen, I'm just annoyed with him because I'm like, can you please do your job? But then I realize like he's dealing with Michael, who is an absolute wild cannon. And I've like dealt with CEOs like that. So I'm like, actually, I have a little bit of empathy for Toby, but like he should have stood up
Yeah.
for himself more.
I'm watching it, rewatching, trying to get my wife into it, and we're 3 seasons in. She's still kind of like, it's kind of slow, but she's just like, how is he not fired yet? How are people not doing HR complaints? I'm like, well, they bring up there's folders of complaints, but yeah,
There's yeah. That have you done the conflict resolution episode yet where he brings up the conflict box and it's like win
oh
win
yeah,
win and he like sorry.
yes,
This is
so
not about
good,
the office.
so
Not about
good.
the office. Okay.
Yeah,
Back to brainstorming. So I'm thinking a lot about like how do you actually create an optimal environment for people to do effective collaboration and brainstorming? Like when you are getting your team together or someone you're working with, what's the setting? How do you do this?
I think the times when it's been most successful, it's setting up the expectations and the brief really clear, right? Like, what problem are we here trying to solve? So like, one of the things that was an issue really early on when we started working like 12 years ago, my co-founder Adam and I were both art directors and creative directors in advertising. And the first few people we hired, they were just like, after a few months of working with us, like, hey, so we didn't grow up in advertising and we're not used to having all of our ideas killed.
Oh,
And we're like,
oh,
oh, I could see how that might be demoralizing. Like, they come up with an idea they're really excited about, and they're like, hey, we should do this. And I'm like, nah, yeah, that's cool, but like, how about what if we like did this? And advertising used to come up with 100 ideas just to like find the best one. And here they are going like everything getting shot down. And I was like, okay. So what we did is we did a training for our team, and it was how to think working, not working thoughts. And and so we did a whole thing. We broke it down to like what ideas are on brand, scrappy, not crappy. We had a whole list of things, and we gave examples of what each one of those meant. And then we gave the entire team silly briefs. So like, what was it? One of them was like, freelancers who work from home don't bathe enough. What can we do to encourage them to bathe? And we gave everyone 5 minutes to come up with ideas, and it could be products, could be whatever. And then everyone shared the ideas, and they were all on brand, and they were all super funny and really smart. And so it was like people who weren't like technically creatives, but they all got it. And then we're like, oh, how would working not working do like a Thanksgiving dinner? And someone's like, well, remember Double Dare, and they had the slide. We would do a slide with mashed potatoes and a gravy pool in the bottom. And I was just like, that's so ridiculous. I love it. It's amazing, right? So very quickly, people got it just by going like, hey, here's how to think a little bit, what we're thinking of, and then here's the brief, and just go nuts and have the freedom to go nuts. Because I think a lot of times what happens in brainstorming is the thing that gets in the way is self-awareness, self-consciousness, and fear. And so if you can go and just say, hey, we're here to play. There's like no ego in this. We're all just trying to get to a great idea. And what are all the different ways we can play with this? And it's like, how would we do? So like a lot of times I'll be like, all right, this is a stupid idea, which, in brainstorming, there's no dumb ideas. But this happened recently. We were doing a workshop with a company, and we were like, all right, well, what can we do with them? And I was like, all right, this is a dumb idea, but what if we had like a mug and we gave people pens and they drew the thing, or wrote the thing on there that they want to manifest because they would see it every day. And they're like, actually, that's kind of cool. So we called it the Mugs of Manifestation. We put it up on the screen with a big logo that I made with crazy trippy GIFs behind it, and then played Flaming Lips over it. And everyone was just like, got really into drawing on their mugs and then put things that they want to be reminded of every day. And I'm like, oh, so that was like a thing where I was like, that's a dumb idea. But then it was like, oh no. And then the team helped make it better.
Yeah. That's so creative. There's like sometimes it's I know it's so creative, and I know that, but like sometimes it's so hard in HR because we are so conditioned to do work a certain way, which is why I was like really excited that you wanted to be on the podcast, and two would be the season opener, because I I think we like really need to reimagine everything we do in HR and actually bring some like joy to the work that we do,
Yes.
because it feels like a lot of times we're just like recreating the same thing over and over again, and
Ugh.
we're not stopping enough to say like, what's our crazy idea? Like the mugs of manifestation. Like what's that equivalent in HR?
And what makes you happy? Like, what brings you joy? What makes you happy? It might be Mean Girls and have a whole Mean Girls thing. HR, yeah, I see your burn book. It's like that might be the thing that you could bring in. So, my dad was a motivational speaker, and he was also a high school teacher at one point, and he used to teach electronics because that was his discipline that he grew up in. And he used to teach a class or a course called I think it was called the Ha Ha Aha Connection. But basically, it was like encouraging teachers to bring their passions to work. And so he was also, this is very weird, but my dad, when I was a kid, was a clown and a magician. And so when he's teaching these high school students, he would bring magic into the lessons. And so this is the thing that he nerds out about, and it brings him a lot of joy. And he's able to like then put the lesson through the lens with a couple things of magic. And so he was encouraging people like, if you're play the guitar, if you're into crocheting, whatever it is, find a way to incorporate that bit, because you're going to be so much more engaging and bring so much more joy to the conversation, because that's the thing that makes you really happy. And so I think that applies to HR, it applies to anything. It's like we always talk about like who creates culture. And I think a lot of times the HR and people teams feel like it's their responsibility, and they're trying so hard to do all these different things. But it's like, no, your people create the culture. So if you could just find out what everyone is into and then just allow them to go and like lead the charge, then you don't have all that pressure on yourself to like feel like I have to go and create every single aspect. What is all the shit that gets us excited? And let's just go and bring all of that to work and have it be a lot of fun.
I want to go meta for like 1 second. Like why do you think we're afraid to show up as ourselves at work? Not you and I specifically, because I think you and I don't have a problem with that, to be
Probably
clear. But
not. Like I
I think,
cry at work. It's fine.
yeah, same.
Yeah.
Literally yesterday, I was like, I'm not well. But why do you think people are afraid to be themselselves at work?
Well, I think the big thing we talk about is like having environments that are actually psychologically safe, especially
Yeah,
for people from underrepresented communities, people of color,
for
women.
sure.
Their environments have not really been set up for many folks to succeed and feel safe to be able to do that. So, I think that's necessary first. But like, let's just say it's a really safe environment. Everyone's really vulnerable. Cool. When it comes to like sharing ideas, I think we've been taught as someone who's a creative, I don't think our school system is really set up to teach people creative problem solving. It's teaching people right and wrong answers. And so you have this wall up that like, I don't want to sound stupid. I don't want to say the wrong answer. I don't want to be judged, and all of this stuff. So I think for me, brainstorming is just playing. And so if you can create environments where we're playing with each other, and like that, like our first conversation the other day, it was just this back and forth. And we're like, yeah, this and this and this and this. And it was just fun, right? It was just fun. We were talking about serious subjects too. We're talking about like, mental health and all these other things, but it was a fun conversation. And so I think it's that, when I was a kid and part of the, wanting to be in advertising, I think it was on 2020, there was IDEO, the, kind of
Yeah.
strategy design agency. They were featured on 2020, and there was a whole thing about they were trying to redesign a shopping cart or something like this. And they all rented a house, and then there was Nerf guns in there and all sorts of toys, and they're all just like hanging out and playing, and got themselves into a state of play. And then they're like, okay, what if we did this? What if we did this? What if we did this? And so if you go and just everyone has permission that there's no bad ideas here. Seriously, there's no bad ideas, because your bad idea may trigger someone else's good idea or your own good idea. You need to follow the rabbit hole. And like, as someone with ADHD, I'm really good at following the rabbit hole, and so I think it's just a matter of like, it is from the start, giving people permission, like, hey, we're going to do this thing. We're going to come up with crazy ideas. And it might even be like someone says an idea, like, what's a way to make that dumber? What's a dumber way to do that? What's a sillier way to do that? What is a way that Lady Gaga would do that? What is a way that Beyonce would do that? And like, just popping different prompts out that push people and pull people in different directions, and then see what happens. And you could be brainstorming about the most serious thing, but I think a lot of it is just like, you have to get the walls down, because then you start feeding off each other. It's almost like improv, not Michael Scott improv, but like regular improv. Uh,
Yes.
Michael Scott improv is hysterical. Um, Give me all your guns. So yeah, but it is that where like you need people to get out of their head, and you need people to not have that self-awareness. And I'm very shameless, which makes it easy to play and brainstorm and all that. But I think we're taught to not do that and not be that. And so I think to create an environment where people can do that, it's going to be fun, and people are going to look forward to it and find ways to like, yeah, let's have fun with each other and play.
Yeah, we always joke like the work week tagline is make work fun, because our content creators are like experts in the space, but also I'm trying to have fun at work. And I think we like lose that magic of what it feels like as a kid to like really ideate. And I think if we could find a way to bring that back to work with the examples you gave, or like starting off like a brainstorm with a like crazy idea session for like 5 minutes, could be so much fun for people and could really shake up how we're always doing work. And it kind of brings me to like my second point of this episode, because I really want to talk about this with you, about how our connection as a society in the last 4 years has like really suffered. They have all these like studies on like loneliness and unhappiness and going remote and hybrid, and the impact it's had on mental health and well-being and overall ability to produce great work and be creative. And I think as you and I are talking about brainstorming and collaboration, I'm dire to know how you like actually do this virtually. Like, is your entire the people you work with, are they all in the same place as you? Are you doing this brainstorming virtually? Like, how are you approaching this in this kind of new world we're in?
All virtual. Yeah, and it's funny because I was talking about this earlier today with my team, and I'm a manager and director, Nicolina, and I was like, it kind of doesn't matter to me. Like, connection is connection. You and I have connection, and I got off that call the other day, and I was energized. It didn't matter that it was a Zoom call. I would have felt the same way if it was in person, and to say like, oh, I can't be inspired or I can't feel connection virtually. And maybe we're all different, but like, that'd be like saying I can't feel emotion from watching a movie on my TV or
Hmm.
watching a TikTok clip or a reel. Like, I'm crying over TikToks with like dads and their kids because I'm a new dad. And so I'm able to connect and I'm able to feel emotion through a screen. So to say I can't feel emotion through a screen with coworkers is insane. Like, that just, it doesn't make any sense. So it's just creating those environments and allowing people to actually feel connection. Now, if I'm sitting in a meeting for a couple hours and we're talking about some bullshit, like, yeah, I'm not feeling a great sense of connection, but I got to create opportunities to have that connection, and maybe have some lunches where we're all hanging out and just like have the camera on and we're just talking about whatever. But yeah, I don't think it makes that much of a difference. I do love being in person because a lot more conversations happen and there is that in between time.
For sure.
Um, but you need to just allow for that to happen.
Well, I think it's interesting because we just had, I keep talking about Amazon saying they're going back to the office 5 days a week.
Good luck with that.
I can't fucking stop talking about it. But like, and
Yeah.
then being like, well, it's like
Dell also.
connection. Yes, Dell also, and giving parents their sales team gave their parents a 2-day notice to come back to the office 5 days a week. I just like made a whole TikTok about this because I was so mad.
They're just trying to get people to quit. Yeah.
Yes, that is I literally that is the nutshell of it all. They want people to come back to the office, force people back to the office, then people quit, and then they don't have to pay severance or unemployment. Like everyone knows that this is what's happening, but you should just say it. But one of the things in the Amazon note that he said was our connection and collaboration is like really suffering in the remote world. So we want everyone back in office. And my first thought was like, well, actually, I have like a really hard time collaborating when I'm wearing like pants, like tight, like work
Yeah, yeah,
pants.
yeah, yeah.
Sorry, I'm
Yeah.
wearing pants right now to be
Okay,
very
good, good,
clear.
good. Same.
Okay,
Glad we clarified.
we can't I can't see from the but we're fine. But I'm saying like I find that really interesting that he was bringing that up as like a point to come back to the office because I was like, wait a minute, that's like not really true. So I kind of love that you made that point about how we do connect to like movies and TV and like look at all the commentary online about things on the television that are happening. Like that is connection in a nutshell as well.
And I host a support group for creators. You mentioned in the opening, Talking Not Talking, and you have people sitting around talking about the things they're struggling with. We're all connecting. We're all nodding, and we're saying, "Yeah, I feel you." You don't need it to be in the office. Now, there are times where it's really helpful to have half day work sessions where we're all in a room. Create those environments, and people will be excited for that stuff. Create a reason for people to come in, and a lot of times it's like if I'm just going in to have a different Zoom background because still half my team is remote, then I am, and it's easy to get really angry if you live in a big city too. The days that we used to have to come in, and the days that I was doing it would always be the day it was raining and just cold and shitty in New York City. And I'm like, one, that's an hour and a half to 2 hours of not getting back in my life, and of showing up feeling awful. I'm feeling awful and resentful. And I'm like, I just don't need this.
It's so interesting because I'm like thinking back to the times I went into the office and it was pouring rain and I was like soaked. And then I just sat at my office desk chair and tried to do work, soggy. And I probably did not get good work done that day. So I just think I don't know. We can put to bed the remote work thing. I think you made a very great point about like movies and television connection can happen through a screen so easily that I don't need to show up to an office to be connected to anyone.
You just need to create time to connect. And I think
Yeah.
that's the difference, right? It's like if I'm meeting after meeting after meeting and having meetings about meetings, then no, I'm not going to be bringing my most joyous best self to the Zoom calls. It's just that's not the environment. But we need to find other ways to do that.
Death to the meetings. I honestly am at the state of my life where I'm like, I need to block my entire calendar and say, you can't have a meeting with me unless you tell me the purpose of the meeting and what you seem to want to achieve. Also, connection. Like, I think meetings are overused for productivity when if they were used more for connection, the work could happen easier. Because when you're connected to somebody, I think about my CEO and we do a lot of async work together, but it's because we spent time getting to know each other. So now I like know how he's reacting to something and I don't need to have a meeting with him every single week to get him to decide on 3 things. I can put together the comms and he can give me a response async. But it took us time to get there. We had to build that relationship first. And I think it took us connecting with one another to actually get there. So if people are listening to this and you're wondering like how can I do this at work, I would like encourage your people to have meetings that are simply to shoot the shit and hang out and have fun. And then the work actually gets easier down the line because they've built that connection and rapport already. I'm not saying they completely go away, but
That's spot on. And I think the other thing is having conversation about what your work style is. So this is I've been doing this for 12 years, and the team I have now, we've been together for 2 to 3 years. It wasn't until my ADHD diagnosis 3 weeks ago that I was like, oh, I was like, so hey gang, so some big news. And I'm now realizing that yeah, you put a really long Slack thing in there, I'm not going to probably respond to it very well, or a huge Google Doc. But if you need me, just huddle me on Slack and I will happily answer and we can do it. But I'm just better talking through things and having to read stuff as a to-do list. And they're like, okay, cool. And so I'm getting text now. I'm like, just text me. Hey, can we get on for 5 minutes? Sure. Yep, that's great. Approved. And it's like, oh, and not, of course, everyone works differently, but having that understanding, because then people are getting frustrated with me because I'm not answering emails or I'm not answering this, that, or the other. And instead, I'm like, okay, just text me. And also, I have my Slack alerts off because it's too distracting while I'm trying to actually focus. So they're like, oh, okay, cool. I'm just texting you. I'm like, yeah, I don't mind that. So it's that kind of stuff, but like one, having a self awareness about it, which I didn't fully have before. And then being able to have everyone communicate that with each other. And some people are like, oh, actually, I'm feeding my kid, who's 6 months old at these times of the day, but like, he takes a long nap in the afternoon. So that's a really great time. And I'm, extra productive then. Cool. Let's do that.
I love that you bring all those up because I do all those things as well. I am not an inbox zero person. I'm like an inbox 100,000 unread emails in my personal inbox and probably like 1,000 or some in my work inbox. So I also say, like, I won't reply to that email. I probably won't read that really long Slack. Just like text me or call me. And so my CEO started huddling me. He'll huddle me like for 5 seconds in between meetings where he's like, I just had a meeting about this, heads up, and then we'll talk about it quickly. And at the end of the day, like something has come to a resolution faster than if he just like waited until the next time we met or like waited. I love the question, like, what's your working style when someone's managing someone new or even working with someone new? Asking that question can actually set the groundwork for like a very successful relationship. And people don't ask it enough.
Well, there's a one last thing to add to that. Like my team previously, this was a couple of years ago. They were like, sometimes take a long time thinking about copy for the website and what we should say and all that. They were like, hey, so we didn't tell you about this, but we built a new feature. We put it on the site, and it's currently live. So if you want to change any of the copy, you should go do that right now because everyone can see it. And I was like, oh shit! One, that feature's awesome. Thank you so much. And I hopped in. I made a couple little tweaks to it, but it got done in 4 minutes. The copy changes got done in 4 minutes because it was live on the site as opposed to talking about it for a week. I was like, that's how you work with me. Yeah.
Also, how you work
Perfect.
with me, which is disturbing.
Yeah.
For 12 years, the world's most innovative brands have trusted Working Not Working to find top tier creative talent. Now they're helping you keep that talent with Internal. Internal is your go-to platform for unlocking the hidden passions of your team. With super personalized profiles, you can dig into your people's ambitions, interests, and secret skills in seconds. Who knew your project manager was a national champion pickleball player, D&D dungeon master, and a karaoke queen? Visit seeyourpeople.com and start matching your team's passions to the work that lights them up. Okay, I have one thought on collaboration. You and I are potentially maybe loud voices in a room. I don't know if you've ever gotten that feedback. I've gotten the feedback that I'm sometimes the loudest voice in a room. So I've been really mindful of it in like recent years because I think when you're collaborating, it's really important that all voices get a chance to be heard. So like with your team and your type of style, like how do you ensure that everyone gets their voice to be heard if maybe they're not the people who have a knee-jerk reaction to something and can verbalize it quickly?
Yeah, I think it's important to, and this is the thing, one, as a dude, as a white dude, trying not to take up all the space in the room. And then I also find out with, not to bring up ADHD again, but like, it is a thing where like finishing other people's sentences is a thing that's hard for me, and trying to get a word in, and like, so you don't forget your thought and like talking over people. So I've really had to like dial that back lately in the past couple of years. But then, like, I think understanding who people are and what they're about. So, like, for example, we had a call the other day and someone was bringing up art. And I know our operations lead, Stephanie, is an amazing fine artist and photographer. And so it's like, oh, again, like this is like her forte. And so, like, leaving space or asking a question like, hey, Stephanie, what would you do in that situation? So, or knowing our developer, Nick, is really into woodworking and like bringing that up. And so I think it's having one genuine curiosity of what other people have to say about things. And then ideally speaking last, unless you're the one setting up the meeting, and laying the stage. But then otherwise, like asking questions and trying to pull down the people, not to put them on the spot, but like, hey, what do you think? And like people are, I think more often than not, people are going to be really happy to share and aren't going to be like, oh my god, I'm being put on the spot here.
Yeah, I do think setting up the brainstorm correctly is also really important. So I'm somebody who loves to think on her feet. Also, think I might need to go get diagnosed with ADHD at some point in my life because I do have a lot of the symptoms. You and I have talked about this. But I'm like quick on my feet, and I love chatting in like meetings. I'm like, yeah, idea, idea. Something that has helped me is realizing literally there are people who need to think about something. And once I've identified those people in my environment, what I'll do ahead of a brainstorm is I'll say like, these are the 3 to 4 things I want to talk about in this brainstorm and what my desired outcome is. And I give them that update like 24 hours ahead of time so that they don't show up to the meeting and they're like, oh my God, I can't help you because I haven't thought about this and I haven't digested this and I'm a different thinker than you. And I think that's also just like so important for inclusivity. There are a lot of environments where like underrepresented groups haven't felt safe enough to even speak out at a meeting. And I think like just giving the people the opportunity to prepare for the chance to say something goes such a long way. So I also throw that out there, like give as much heads up as possible. Um, I have one more question about brainstorming, and then I want to talk about some other stuff. Okay, my last question about brainstorming: what common barriers do you actually see when you're like starting to do these brainstorms? You all are like a very creative bunch. Not every environment is like that, but like, do you see barriers when you're getting into brainstorm mode with your team? And like, how do you overcome any of them?
I think the biggest barrier is a lot of times having walls up. So, even coming to it, depending on what's going on with your day and all that. So I think sometimes it is like just kind of like shooting the shit and having, talking about whatever first, or maybe you have some thought starter questions and they might be like ridiculous. I'm trying to come up with one on the spot. Like, if you could
Oh,
have
I
a
have a really good one
Macy's.
for you.
Yeah.
If
Oh, please. Yes.
I haven't, sorry, I used this one earlier this week. If you could have one fictional character to be your coworker, who would it be and why?
Oh, that's great. See, like
I
that,
don't.
something like that, just to get you out of your normal day to day. And you're like, yeah, who would be my fictional
I said Selena Meyer.
Jesse Pinkman.
Ooh,
I'm just like, I just need someone to be more enthusiastic than me, and just like, yeah,
isn't that a
I
fun
don't know. That's
question
the
though?
first thing that came into mind. Yeah,
So you ask like a question to like get the barrier down and get people to like really start, I don't know, embracing the fact that they're about to really share some interesting ideas with each other.
yeah, and I think, and it is like setting the tone, setting the goals, and then like, for me, like I always love. There's two kind of different approaches of working out working ideas. I like ideas that are big, dumb, and fun. So like not overthought, very straightforward, but like maybe a bit silly. Like one of my favorite ideas that we never did was I wanted a sign up button on our homepage that just progressively got bigger the more you scroll down the page until it took over the whole screen. And nobody else wanted to build it, but I was like, it's so stupid and over the top, and then they didn't want to do it, but it's fine. Um, but so it's like either big, dumb, and fun, or I just say, how would we do this in real life? So one of our values as companies do it for our friends. And so like, hey, if we're sending an email, just talk how we would talk to our friends. Like if we're gonna go and like try to help someone, like hire a creative, well, how would I do in real place? If it was looking for someone, I'd go like, okay, yeah, like if you could hire anybody, who would it be? Like real or fictional? Like, and then you would probably tell me a couple of people. You're like, oh, I love this person or this person, and then it was like, all right, that points me in a direction, a personality type or style or whatever it is that can reframe my thinking really quickly. So, but I'm like, well, how would I just do this if you were my friend and we're doing it in person? Okay, then how do we make a tool on a website that replicates that without overcomplicating it?
Wait, I have 2 things. One, I think you should ask hiring managers that question. If you could hire like any fictional person to work on your team, who'd it be? That's fascinating. I don't ever ask questions like that. I ask things like, what skills are you looking for to add to your team? So I might start asking some fun questions and get some brainstorming going. But my second question was, how do you decide what ideas to actually pursue and not pursue? Like
Oh,
the sign up
that's a great
button.
the sign up.
I
Well,
kind
I
of want it.
think there is a thing where like consensus or a certain amount of consensus is good, and you have smart people that you hired, and if everyone's psyched about an idea or almost everyone is psyched about an idea, that's probably a good indicator. So like Rick Rubin, I was listening to him on some podcast, and he was talking about like, oh yeah, we don't send anything out until everyone loves it. And of course, you're probably working with a band with 2 or 3 people. He goes, but
Yeah.
like we all really gotta love it, because if someone doesn't, there's a reason for that. And so like let's get it to a place that we're all really excited about, which is great. Obviously, that's not always possible in big orgs. Um, but so that's one thing. And then it's like Google has a thing like that too. So if someone has an idea for a feature, I don't know if they still do this, but I heard about this. If they have an idea for a feature, they have to go and recruit developers to work on it. And if you can't recruit any developers to work on it, then that's probably a sign that like, maybe it's not something we should be building. But if you can go and get someone else equally excited about it to go and build this thing, then that tells you a lot. So I think it's just hey, what gets us all excited? If a bunch of us are like, shit, that would be awesome. Let's do that. and like, cool, let's go and do that. And let's figure out how to do that more often. Let's experiment more often. Let's fail small and let's just try a lot of stuff and see what happens.
That's so cool. I was just like, it's interesting because I think consensus is probably an HR person's worst nightmare. Like,
Uh-huh.
if I had to go convince
And a
all
creative
of my
person, really.
employees,
Yeah.
yeah, if I had to go convince all of my employees that performance reviews were it, I would never win. First of all, I would never go do that anyways. But I'm just thinking about like it's so cool how you approach work. And like I know you do creative work, but HR at its core needs to also embrace that more creative style work because that's how we move into the future. And so there's all the nuggets you've shared around brainstorming. I'm just like buzzing trying to figure out how I can bring this back to my team, how I can say, let's like brainstorm an idea around internal employee profiles. What does that actually look like? That type of stuff. And you're building some really cool stuff that, could be relevant to HR people, just saying.
Yeah.
Um, tell me,
Thank you.
okay, so I want to end the episode. I want to talk a little bit about the cool next thing you're building. So tell me a little bit about internal.
So, yeah, thanks for asking. So we started working 12 years ago, and it was basically initially a platform for recruiters, resource managers to hire creative talent. So it was freelance, full-time people. You had beautiful profiles with projects on it. You could search all the filters, all that stuff. Super simple. But what people kept coming to us like, hey, could I have that, but for my own team? And we're like, oh yeah, like, yeah, I just joined a company. There's 200 creatives and 2,000 people in the company. I have no idea what anybody can do. We're doing it in spreadsheets, and that's never really accurate. And so so that kept coming up, and then finally we were like, oh yeah, we should do that. And so we got together with one of our first customers from working back in the days, ad agency Wyden and Kennedy, who's like, arguably like top one or two ad agencies in the world every year. And they wanted to build something like this. They're like, hey, you guys have this thing. So like, yeah, let's go and build it together. So they were our design partner. And for us, it was like, how do we build HR software, people software that actually treats people like people? We're like humans, not headcount. And so we're giving people big profiles with like nice images and all that stuff, but we're asking them, what are your passions and interests? What are you really into? What do you nerd out about? And sure, I can go and check basketball, but I have a field where I can go, no, I'm a massive Celtics fan. Or video games, sure, I'm into video games, but I'm also really into Fortnite because I'm clearly like 10 years old. But like I could put all of those things in there that I'm really into, and especially within creative spaces. Like a lot of times, in ad agencies, they'll send all agency emails like, hey, we're pitching a new business. Who's into soccer? And so sometimes people see that and they go, hey, I'm into soccer. But like to be able to go and search your entire workforce and find everyone in the company that's into soccer and then maybe is also Spanish speaking in 10 seconds is like really valuable. And I think a lot of times what happens is like, I'm going to be working at a company, I'm working on different projects, but like all of a sudden I hear that a project came in that like is totally aligned with something I'm super excited about, but I never knew about it. I never got asked to work on it, and it passed me by. And so, we did the happiness survey with full-time people in the Working Network, and we ended up calling it the unhappiness survey because like so many people are, it's like 56% of people who answered it are planning on leaving their jobs in the next 12 months, 41% in the next 6 months, 75% of people registered meh to miserable. So like on a scale of 1 to 5, they were like between 1 and 3, 75% of people. So if you have this, and the biggest thing is like the thing that kept people around wasn't salary, that kept them around on average of 28 days longer. It was doing work that aligns with their values and their passions, and people, working with people they care about, and of course work flexibility. But if we can go and allow folks to, when we talk about bringing your full self to work, like all of those things we've been talking about this whole episode, is those passions and interest. And the things, we talk about Gen Z being all about purpose. And it's like, yeah, that's really important. It's crazy to me that we had the entire world recalibrated their priorities 4 years ago. And to have companies completely disregard that and ignore that even happened is insane. And it's like, you need to be doing work that aligns with the purpose and the values of the people who work for you. And if you're not doing that, they're going to leave, and it's going to be really hard to bring other people in that really, align with you. And so, yeah, so the profiles are all about sure, passions and interests, but then we also have prompts. So, and it's all customizable based on the company, but like some of the default ones we have are like, I love the opportunity to. I feel most fulfilled at work when, but then if I were a professional wrestler, my entrance music would be, or my least marketable skill is. And then we have on the profile further down, we have 3-word headlines about yourself. So mine is very loud clapper from my cheerleading days. We have hidden talents. We have dream clients. So like all of that stuff is like, yeah, this is the stuff that gets me really excited. And if I have, in my company, if I'm a creative agency, 50 people say WNBA is their dream client. Cool. Let's go and pitch the WNBA and try to get a project. But that could work really for any type of company. Like, what are the things you really care about, and how do we make that happen for ERGs?
Yeah.
All different ways to really help create culture and create belonging.
When I saw it, honestly, I was like really inspired about it. And this whole podcast is like bringing light to the things that we're all struggling with in HR, and also like exposing the listeners and the readers of the newsletter to like really cool tools that are out there. And I think internal looks just really cool. And honestly,
Thank
I was like,
you.
I even employee profiles are so boring. People never use them. And I'm almost
Never.
like, we have user guides that we ask people to fill out, but like it's a Google Doc. And half the time people don't
Yeah.
fill them out. When they do fill them out and they read somebody else's, they're like, oh my God, this is so helpful. I feel like I can like go work with that person better now. And I think like everything we talked about on this call, from brainstorming to working remotely, it all comes back to that very first connection you have with someone and how you continue to build that. And what a better way than to like get to know people in really interesting ways.
And for us, it's the important thing now. Is like, imagine joining a team, being new to a company, and being able to go and see profiles of everyone that you're going to work with, and all of their jokes and sense of humor and style. Like, we're noticing even people who maybe spend 5 at the most 10 minutes filling out a profile, you very quickly understand their personality type, their sense of humor, what they're all about, and you're like, that's awesome. So to be able to go and like, hey, here's everyone you're going to be working with, or even before you log into a meeting, be able to see people's thing, and you're like, oh wow, they volunteer in an animal shelter, and they do this, that, and the other, and we have these 3 things in common. Like, that's awesome. And we thought this was for large organizations. Then we did it for our 5 people and 5 freelancers, and found out, I talked about sound bath bowls, but then also like our head of operations was a competitive bodybuilder. Our head of marketing was a national champion figure skater and was played by Olivia Wilde in a movie. Like, so it's all this stuff. Like, you would, even though we were working together all the time, we were just 5 people. There was so much I didn't know about everybody, and it really helped us connect in just such a more profound way.
For sure. And it's like deeper. It's better for loneliness. Like the loneliness study to me, by the way, I want to link to is the unhappiness study public? Because I want to link to it
Yes.
in the show
Yep.
notes. Amazing. Because I think a lot of people would be interested to read it. But I just think like our connection has suffered so much that to give people a way to do it at work is the biggest problem we need to solve now as HR leaders, because the loneliness is only going to get worse, and it impacts everything from mental health, well-being, productivity, connection to the organization, the manager, the leader. So it's a simple thing that actually fixes a massive problem we're all feeling right now, as engagement has gone down in the last 4 years and people are wondering why. Well, it could be because your employees aren't connecting with one another anymore.
Well, and I think the big thing, you started off with that question, is like, what do HR people need to rethink? I think the other part of that is, what do companies need to rethink? And when
Mm.
things get a little chaotic and things get tough, it's mind boggling that the first thing to get cut is the people team, is the all of the support for HR and people and culture gets cut. And it is the most important thing in uncertain times. And your people are your differentiator. Your people are all you have. And if you're not investing in them, you're on the decline, and you're just kind of like so detrimental to your business. What are you doing? And so, like, and then we have the unhappiness survey, but like the places that actually go and value their people, they're not dealing with that problem. And like, become that place, become the beacon of being a really great place to work that takes care of your people, even in the tough times. And they're going to like lead you through that. And you'll be miles ahead of everybody else's as an org.
What a beautiful way to end this episode, Justin. I'm so grateful, one, that I get to know you, and two, that I get to talk to you. I can't
Oh,
wait for
thanks. This is amazing.
hopefully many, many years of us just sending each other weird things on the internet that we see.
I would
Because I
love
just
that. That would be amazing.
same images. Okay, but tell people how they can get in touch with you after listening to this episode. If they want to reach out to you, if they want to learn more about working, not working, what's the best way they can do it?
Yeah, just hit me up, justin@workingnotworking.com. The website is there too. And on there, we've got internal. If you want to find out more about internal, go to seeyourpeople.com.
So cool. Thank you so much, Justin. This has been wonderful.
Thanks, Eva. Oh, this is awesome.
Thanks for tuning in. Keep up with all the latest HR resources by subscribing on Apple, Spotify, Google, or wherever you listen. And if you love I Hate It Here, tell an HR friend. I'll see you next time.